Hi everyone, it's Carolyn here with Cello Discovery, and today I want to talk to you about an exercise that I think is really helpful if you are having trouble shifting. I mean, trouble shifting means a lot of different things, and usually what it means is you're having a hard time playing in tune. The intonation is not where you want it to be, and that's probably because there's a couple things that you need to think about a little closer in order to be able to play with really good intonation while you shift. This practice that I have is what I call the one finger, one octave scale, shifting scale. And you can practice this on any finger. But we're going to start with the A string, and we're going to do a D major one octave scale. Now I like to start with second finger because it's the finger that I'm most comfortable with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a one finger, one octave scale with the second finger so you can see what this is about, and then I'll tell you more about it. I can also do a C major, one octave scale. Now that was just with my second finger. I can do the same thing again with my first finger, but the cool thing about this is that you can play basically any scale that you want if you just use one finger, but what you have to know is the intervals between the different scale degrees. So if you weren't sure of that, this is something that you want to memorize and have it in your head as you play any scales, whether they're fully fingered or just with one finger. And the distance between each note, whether it's a whole step or whether it's a half step. And just a quick reminder, a half step is basically from one note to the very next adjacent note. When you stack two half steps on top of each other, you get a whole step. So that's a half step. When I stack two half steps together, I get a whole step. So here to here is a whole step. There's a half step between the two. Okay, so for a major scale, this is the formula that you put in for every scale, and that's how you learn what the distance is between every note. Sometimes it's this, and sometimes it's this. Sometimes it's a whole step, and sometimes it's a half step. So starting for your first note, the second note is a whole step, then another whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, another whole step, another whole step, and then a half step. You plug that formula in any scale with your one finger, and that's your major scale. One of the reasons it's really good to know that is because when you're shifting, it's very important if you just remember and think, are you going a half step or are you going a whole step? The other thing that knowing the intervals helps you with is that you get a better sense of how the notes get closer and closer together the farther up the fingerboard you get. So a whole step might be this in a lower position, and it might be this in a higher position. Those notes are much closer together, and that one finger scale really helps you just focus on that. So it's an intonation practice. Another thing that it does is get you very aware of how your arm moves. So you want to make sure that it's not just a finger that's shifting or a finger and then a wrist. It's everything from the finger all the way to the elbow. And you always lead with the elbow. The arm comes up and leads. You don't want to just take the hand without the rest of the arm. So it's also an arm movement. And along the lines of intonation, this kind of practice is so good because you really get to learn, what does the finger feel like? What does the string feel like under your finger? And you can take lots of time on every note to feel what a really in tune note feels like under your finger, what it sounds like, to be fully present with all your senses. So I can feel the string vibrating under my finger, and I know what that feels like to be really in tune. And then the distance from, I know what that feels like. I know what that whole step feels like. So this kind of practice is so good for you to just be very present with every note and feel the intonation, sense the distance between each note, learning your intervals, your scale patterns, all that good stuff. So that's one of my really good tricks that I have my students do when they're having trouble shifting, is just go to a 1-finger scale, any finger that you want, and just plug that formula into it and practice your shifting, because it will get better the more that you do it.